but I laugh and eat well. I laugh and eat well and grow strong. I grow strong. I'll be at the table when company comes. When company comes, yeah, say to me, be in the kitchen there. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am. Both sides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I am America.
Mayday Hauling is a junk removal business based here in San Francisco. We service residential customers, commercial customers, and we pride ourselves in being efficient, being friendly, being knowledgeable about what we do. A lot of our customers call us back and refer us to other people, so that's what makes us special.
Where'd you come up with the name Mayday?
It's a distress call, right? For whatever reason, a lot of people who call me and want to use my service, there's always some urgency behind it. They need stuff gone right away, or they've been hanging on to it and wrestling back and forth with letting it go. So when we finally come in and do our thing, there's a lot of relief.
What is something you want to say to other Black entrepreneurs that want to start a business?
I would say do it. Wherever they want to go is possible. They can control, their destiny too.
My family has slowly been losing their land for years. This is something I have to do for them. I know too much history of how land and real estate has been used against Black people. I have to do something to fix it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Dr. Saida Lantitutu Birch, and it is both an honor, a pleasure, and a blessing to serve as the inaugural director of the Dreamkeeper Initiative. I've said it on this stage before, maybe 2 years ago, and I'll say it again today, to quote a globally recognized poet and my sister, Teresa Tinezi Amitonu, it is days such as this that are dedicated to being our ancestors' wildest dreams and our colonizers' worst nightmares. When we have bold leadership such as that of Mayor Breed, Supervisor Walton, of Director Davis, it is no coincidence that folks like myself, a Black and Samoan woman, can stand up here before you today. And I just share a bit about the Dreamkeeper Initiative and what got us here today. Many of you are what got us here today. If you remember, in 2020, there were more than 60 convenings, more than 700 stakeholders who said, this is what we want to do with those dollars that you reallocated to the Black community. And so I'm going to go through what community told us, and then we'll hear from some esteemed folks. So the Dreamkeeper Initiative launched just about a year ago. And what we heard clearly about the dream was this, is that our goal is to dismantle anti-Black systems and structures that San Francisco's diverse Black communities may experience, so that San Francisco's diverse Black communities may experience a prosperous future, where they are experiencing joy, where they feel safe, where we are able to part of that goal and maintaining that for San Francisco's diverse Black communities. In order to achieve that goal, what is our foundation? What do we stand on? What do we invest in? And so in order to accomplish the goal, the Dreamkeeper invests in a set of foundational actions which address the core structural actions we must collectively take to address the root causes, of racial wealth inequities. The actions together serve as the base for an action plan that creates systemic change and disrupt the status quo. So it is no accident that that action is there multiple times. I think we've heard for decades and for generations about all the talk with no action. And so this is an effort where we are putting action behind all the talk, where we are actually doing and walking our talk. And I'm proud to be a part of such an effort. And so in no particular order, what do these actions include? One is creating culturally affirming spaces that celebrate Black folks. When we walk into a space such as this, when we hear beautiful voices in the form of the arts, how do we feel? Do we feel seen? Do we feel represented? The physical spaces that highlight the culture and beauty of San Francisco's diverse Black communities. These gathering spaces celebrate joy and being in community together and give visitors an opportunity to engage in the expansive experiences of the Black diaspora, which is a beautiful thing. Next, we implement transformative social emotional wellness. So San Francisco diverse Black communities have access to mental and physical healing and wellness spaces that is created and provided by people with shared lived experience and who practice cultural humility, some of whom are represented in this room today. Our healers, our mental health specialists, in an effort so that families receive support where they are loved and cared for. How many of us want to be loved and cared for? The third, grow financial health and economic well-being. We heard loud and clear, we want that bag, right? Yes, we want the money. San Francisco diverse Black communities have their foundational needs met so that we can sustain. Foundational needs include access to health care, access to child care, access to income, through economic growth and home ownership, through employment pathways in high growth industries, guaranteed income, and other income generating opportunities. Again, many of our partners in the community and the city who contribute to workforce and entrepreneurship and income generating opportunities are in this room today, and thank you. Black-centered education and enrichment. I participated in an amazing class on Saturday with the Community Research Institute, which teaches community researchers how to conduct research through an Afrocentric lens. And I was blown away. And so this is to cultivate instances such as that, or practices such as that. Using culturally affirming tools, Black-centered education and enrichment offers activities with a Black cultural lens to inspire learning and provide programs where learners across the life course, because we're all learners in this room, can learn about and celebrate their culture and foster academic success. And then, Black-led and Black-centered narrative shift. Too often, our stories are told by people who don't look like us, people who don't share our experiences, and so the Dreamkeeper is really committed to using performance, as we showcased this morning, arts, storytelling, and media to foster Black-led and Black-centered narratives that showcase our expansive experiences, stories, and talents. These narratives are created to highlight the rich beauty and brilliance within the Black community. And finally, build organizational knowledge and infrastructure. So we heard capacity building was a gap in community. And so the goal is that Black-led and Black-serving organizations are adept in centering San Francisco's diverse Black communities, that these organizations are financially solvent and growing, that their policies and practices are reflective of wanting to create change so that San Francisco's diverse Black communities may prosper. So all of these actions together will culminate, we expect, will land in a set of outcomes. A set of outcomes that would suggest that our foundational needs are met, as I mentioned, that we have access to education, childcare, foundational needs, that we can live the quality of life that we define for ourselves and not the life that somebody else said we should have. That we're in decision-making spaces, our community is activated, our power is activated, and that our systems partners, many of whom are represented here, are practicing increased transparency and accountability when they're making decisions around budgets and when they're making decisions around policy. And then in the long term, we expect to be healthy, wealthy, and thriving, to have everything we need to live the life that we want for ourselves and for the generations that follow, and that policies and practices will shift in our favor. And so what have we learned, and what are we gonna see or hear more about as the panelists follow me? Some milestones. We've intentionally invested, over the last year, we've intentionally invested in advancing equity. So Dreamkeeper has invested nearly $60 million to 70 community organizations representing over 140 grants. And that is no short feat. So a lot of work has been happening and going on the ground. So we thank you. I just want to take a moment to thank all of you who represent the community. And some folks like to say, to help create better outcomes for San Francisco's diverse Black communities. We also are working on intentional targeted career pathways. So in part, we've heard complaints and hearings about discriminatory practices in hiring. So in partnership with the Department of Human Resources, we are intentionally working to explore the city's hiring process, as well as a pipeline for support, development, and sustainability of new workers in the city and county of San Francisco. The grant process. So this is one of the few times where city departments have incorporated community input into the RFP grant and selection process. And so we're demonstrating how to partner with community in decision and grant-making processes to minimize confusion around grantee selection. And so also, that's another milestone in terms of community having a say in the decision of who gets funding. And then finally, collaboration across departments. The Dreamkeeper initiative has prompted regular meetings across departmental partners to discuss how to align our efforts and to consider how to support grantees, communities, and individuals through an accountability and racial equity lens. So a lot of work has happened over the last year, and we're really excited to continue this work. And so as I close, I just want to share a quick story with you all. I remember when I was heading to the voting polls, my first time voting in 2008, to exercise my rights, which I proudly do. And there was I was voting in 2008 primaries, and there was a white woman on the ballot and a Black man. And we know how that ended up and what I'm talking about. And so I was discussing my selection or the candidates with my mom, and I said, well, what about the woman? And she looked at me, like mamas look at their kids, and she turned and she said, you was Black first. Black first, which sometimes can be a complicated notion, especially in an environment as we live in today. But I thought I was Black before I was a thought. I was Black before my Samoan father swept her off her feet. And I wear my Black and Samoan proud. I know that until my black is free, my Samoan will never be free. And so every day I wake up and go to sleep, I praise God for being black first. I praise God for being black in Samoan, for being black in woman, for being black and beautiful, for being black and queen, for being black and educated, for being black and soul, for being black and powerful, for being unapologetically black. This dream keeper fight is always, for me, always dedicated to the black dedicated to the endless fight for black liberation and indigenous sovereignty. And so I thank you all for joining us in this fight and remaining steadfast. I am honored to bring up again the San Francisco Bay Area Theater Company, and then you will hear from our esteemed panelists, moderated by Dr. Cheryl Davis, and our panelists, Dr. Cornel West, Mayor William Reed, and President of the Board of Supervisors, Shaman Walton.
Thank you so much, Dr. Inspired. Again, we are the San Francisco Bay Area Theater Company. I am Rodney Jackson.
All right, Rodney.
Just taking notes, baby. And these selections are from a show that we created with the San Francisco Bay Area Theater Company called ITC America, written and conceived by a fellow Jefferson at ITC. This song is a poem I know called In Daddy's Arms. We made it a song that's written by Fulani Abiyade. In Daddy's arms, I am tall and close to the sun and warm. In Daddy's arms, in Daddy's arms. In Daddy's arms, I can see over the things out there. I can touch the bottom leaves of that big magnolia tree. And listen to me, we are. In my daddy's arms. It's closer at nighttime when I can almost touch it. When it grins back at me from the wide twinkling skies. In Daddy's arms, in Daddy's arms, in Daddy's arms, I am tall, taller than Benny, or my friends Hayden George. I am tall, taller than Uncle Billy, and best of all, I am like all even Steven with my big brother Jamal.
spins me round and round. When daddy spins me round and round. When daddy spins me round and round and round. And when the whole world is crazy, upside down, I am big and strong. I am big and strong. I am big and strong and proud like him. In daddy's arms, in daddy's arms, in daddy's arms. My daddy.
Morning.
I don't know, I'm gonna be like, that was not, what I was, you're supposed to be excited, like, not necessarily to see me, but just to be alive. So, before we go much further, I know you all know I'm always talking about it, to be a teacher. I have to be in kindergarten teacher mode right now, because I think folks have been asked to find a seat and not to hold the wall up. And so I'm going to ask those of you who can to find a seat because we don't want. So I'm gonna say this, and I know that this is being live streamed, but you know there are different sets of expectations when we do stuff with Black folks. They will call the fire marshal on y'all because I want, first off, I just have to say, I feel like I was in church just now. I want, first and foremost, as we do this work, so often we get so consumed with doing the work, and I want to make sure that we are doing our part to make sure that the next generation of folks has been supported to step into leadership. And I by no means have anything to do with the amazingness that is Dr. Saida Leah Tutu. I was moved to tears just listening to her speak. And just knowing that if she is doing this now, y'all gotta watch out and stay out of the way because she's there in the new path. We are getting ready to move into this panel, and I wanted to give context for this panel. You know, I will never, my son can say this, I cannot. I'm not born and raised in San Francisco, and I know sometimes that is a very thing for folks. So I will lay claim to my son, who has born here, raised here, and has seen, even in his short lifetime, the change of Fillmore Street, right? The change of 3rd Street, the change of the Tenderloin, all of these things. And when I think about folks who get into positions of power or the ability to make decisions and policies, and when they get into those spaces, they sometimes forget where they came from, or they forget who was a part of their lives before they got into that space, and they then become, they then have to be beholden to folks with money or that they think will keep them in that space. Right. The Dreamkeeper Initiative is because of the commitment and dedication of 2 folks born in this city who did not forget their roots in this city. So whether we agree with the politics and policies or the personalities of those people, what I do know, having worked with those folks in the community, is that they love Black people. They love all people, but they love Black people. They understand what it is to be Black in San Francisco. They understand those disparities and those long history of disinvestment. And they made a commitment. They saw a moment in time when everybody else was talking about giving money and stepping up and being committed to Black people and repairing and restoring. They actually did it. That's right. And they did it. Yeah, that's what but they did it in a way that challenged the system. And so I say that because I often give President Walton, especially a hard time. I'm like, I don't need any new projects, no new jobs. But they did that in a way that when Mayor Breed said to me, like, we want to do this and we want this to roll out, she knew that asking me to be a part of that meant that it required community. The only reason I would say, not because I'm smart, intelligent, or anything, I think the only reason they selected and chose to have the Human Rights Commission be a part of this is that they know the Human Rights Commission will put community first. And so this money has gotten in the hands of folks who just want to get food out on the streets, as well as organizations. That is transformative. And so today, this conversation is about this work that's being done in San Francisco that is informed and led by community, and how that is really a very different version from the commitments that have been made on a national level. And so part of this conversation, I was talking with Dr. West maybe last month, a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about what San Francisco is doing that really nobody else has done in this scale. Willing to come and have this conversation and dialogue in public. And so he said yes, and that's how we're here today. So I want to invite up President Walton, Mayor London Breed, and Dr. Cornel West to the stage. So again, I just want to first start with that. I thought that we would, my first question would kind of go to Mayor Breed and to Supervisor Walton, and then come back really almost kind of like discuss it and respond it, for Dr. West to really respond to what he hears from them. So Mayor Breed and President Walton, you made this decision a couple of years ago to allocate money, which became the Dreamkeeper Initiative. Mayor Breed, what risky, in my opinion, to say you're putting money out for Black folks as the mayor. Okay. And that was a huge risk I always appreciate. I don't know about other folks. Why do that? You know, in the politics, in political, and where there aren't enough Black people to get you reelected.
That's right there.
Well, first of all, I just have to take a moment to pause because I'm sitting on the stage with Dr. Cornel West. And still is an icon, not just around philosophy, but around just African-American people and analyzing the struggles and the challenges that exist and putting them into a context in which this country continues to try and abide by. And I remember studying Dr. West at Davis, and it just, the first time you came to San Francisco, I was a little starstruck, but so grateful for your work, your advocacy, and your consistency in fighting for African Americans in this country. So it's an honor to be on this stage with him to talk about something that is really near and dear to my heart. And I truly feel blessed to be in a position like this because I really never thought something like this could happen to someone like me. And to be here and to be with all of you, especially people from the community who I have personally seen left out of the prosperity of San Francisco, it's even more meaningful. You all remember when I was the executive director of the African American Art and Culture Complex. And at the time, when I was actively engaged and working in the community, it had everything to do with the fact that so many of the people I grew up with, and I'm talking about intelligent, talented, hardworking, amazing, wonderful people, and I'm going to their funerals on a regular basis. I'm watching my community transform right before my eyes, and it's still heartbreaking to think about all the people that are no longer here because I was in classes with them. We played on the schoolyards together. We had fights on the schoolyards together. I had a lot of fights with them. And just to think that all of the things that have happened to our community, the people who unfortunately ended up on drugs, the people who ended up behind bars, the people who ended up dead, I can't help but try to wonder in my mind because I came through that same environment where anything could have happened to me. And so I always would wonder, why me? Why me? Why am I in this position? And I can't help but believe that it definitely comes from a higher power. I can't help but believe because it wasn't pretty and it wasn't comfortable and there were blood, sweat, and real tears and hurt and heartache and frustration. I mean, when you think about all the challenges that exist in the African American community, I can't help but be encouraged by being in a position like this, and I can't help but take risks in order to transform lives so that the experiences that I had growing up doesn't happen to the next generation growing up in the cities. So you think about San Francisco, a place that talks about being very progressive, very liberal, advocate, and we believe in everything and everybody. What about Black people in San Francisco? And the thing, and the reason why I continue to push has a lot to do with, wait a minute. It's not just because you're not Black trying to say what is best for Black people. It's more so because you haven't even lived through these experiences. You haven't even lived through these experiences. And when you have had no other choice but to live in poverty and death and destruction, and there's nothing else around you, there is no way that you can't be in a position like this and be willing to put everything on the line in order to even before what sadly, tragically happened to George Floyd that finally woke up a lot of people in this country that had not been woke before. Even before that, San Francisco we were pushing the envelope with a number of initiatives to try and make a difference in this community. And when this happened, I really did see this as a bigger opportunity because people were talking about specifically, well, we need to focus on money for minorities. And what I say to that, it's not just because I'm Black, but every different race in the city has a different set of challenges, right? But San Francisco, with the Black community in particular, less than 6% of the population. almost 40% of the homeless, 50% of those incarcerated, all of the disparities when you look at even the people who tragically have died from overdoses in this city, disproportionately are overwhelmingly African American. And so when you have these kinds of disparities in such a small population,
Right.
it is your responsibility as a leader to acknowledge it, to make the investments, to make the policy changes, and to be unapologetic. That's why this was important to me. And that's why with working with Cheryl Davis in the community for so many years, I knew that she was the right person to do this because of her love and care for the community. And that's why so many of you leaders and people who are working with various organizations and kids who drive us crazy, but we still love them. That's why a lot of you are here today. Because it was so difficult for so many of you to get access to resources. It was so difficult. I know it still is. And that's why we're here. Because we have to continue to work on it. We can't throw up our hands. We have to focus on the work.
And let me just say this, Mayor Breed and President Walton, because I see Ms. Felicia and SF Black Wall Street. I want to clarify, there aren't enough to get you elected, but Black folks do impact the vote, so don't underestimate. Don't erase us. President Walton, I think.
So first of all, before I respond to Dr. Davis's question, I really just want to say how thankful and how grateful I am for your leadership over at the university. We direct resources to the Black community, and we had conversations about how we were going to do this. I could never have imagined the Dreamkeeper Initiative would be the fruits of those conversations and be the fruits of the resources that we carved out. So you and your team at the HRC, I want to make sure that you are commended. I want to make sure that you're acknowledged publicly, because this work that happens on the ground really starts from your leadership. It starts from what happens at the university. I think it became real evident in 2020 that we didn't just have a Black people problem in America, but we also had a Black people problem here in San Francisco.
Yes.
And a lot of times with all the great work we do, and we are ahead of the curve in a lot of areas in terms of addressing inequities, in terms of addressing injustice. But most certainly we are at the bottom and the back when it comes to making sure that we look out for Black people. And we hear folks talk about how they support us. We hear folks talk about how they want us to be successful, how they want us to have a thrived Black population, how they want us to come back to San Francisco, how they want us to be able to change the negative outcomes that affect the Black community until we start talking about resources. And when we start talking about resources, all of a sudden, it's a problem. And then everybody who says they advocate for you, who says they work for you, who says they have your back, all of a sudden they have a problem with what you want to do with resources. And there's great work happening right now with the Dreamkeeper Initiative. I'm excited about the fact that we were able to carve out $60 million for 2 years. But we have a long way to go to, one, make sure that that $60 million at the very least. And by the way, that $60 million commitment per year was the least we could do. So that's not even something to brag about in terms of saying that this is the end or that we have arrived or that we have made it happen. But most certainly it is something to celebrate. Most certainly it is something to be hopeful for. And I really look at that carve out as the first step of reparations. You all know we have a reparations act that I led the legislation on, that we legislated at the Board of Supervisors. And I think there are several reparations conversations happening across the country, but there are no legislative bodies that have legislated a task force that gives them the authority to come up with strategies and a plan that's going to eventually lead to tangible resources for the Black community. And so the Dreamkeeper Initiative, I see as that first step, and it's something that, of course, we have to continue to grow and make sure that that investment and that commitment that we made to the Black community continues. We got a long way to go. I look at the audience, and a lot of you are doing great work in San Francisco, but some of you don't live here. And it's not because you don't want to, it's because you can't afford to. So when we talk about home ownership, when we talk about mental health and wellness, when we talk about the over-criminalization, over-incarceration of Black people, when we talk about the fact that we have so many Black folks who are incarcerated for marijuana, and now we have so many white folks who are having moving businesses and who are able to feed their families and make a living. So we have to get those convictions thrown out for our folks so that they can thrive. Because when you do something wrong, you have to right it. And that's what the Dreamkeeper Initiative is about. It's about addressing the wealth gaps that exist in our communities. It's about making sure that our children and our grandchildren have an opportunity to thrive in San Francisco.
That right there.
And the mayor always talks about the fact that if she's the last Black woman mayor of San Francisco, if I'm the last president of the Board of Supervisors as a Black man, then we haven't done our job. And so we have to make sure, not only through the Dreamkeeper Initiative, but every policy we make, every strategy we put in place, the way we walk through our communities here in San Francisco is providing an opportunity for the next person to be in leadership, because that is more important than what we do today for making sure our future can thrive.
You see how fortunate I am to be able to work with these amazing people? Yes. So last night I heard you say that folks who are talking about doing this work but don't put resources behind it are not serious, right? Like, we have to question that. You talked about what love looks like, right? What justice is, right? Love is, but that language of love and how it shows up. I just wanted to hear from you, and I want them to also hear how this fits into that landscape of like transformation and using love and social justice. And I said earlier, our policies and things may not always agree, but the love of people, the commitment to people, I think that on this stage is what's represented, and that commitment to right the wrongs and to address and admit that they have happened. And so I just think, you have done this work. You have been pushing this work. You've talked about it. When you look at this crowd, when you see the folks that were outside, when you listen to our folks who are elected officials, but community too at heart, what resonates?
I get fired up. All these people sparkle in their eyes, fire in their soul. But I want to first just begin by saluting you. Your visionary leadership cannot be denied. And to be in dialogue with my dear sister and brother, mayor and the president. My king, chocolate. It's always important to put it in the flow of history. Because you see, the greatness of Black people is to look the chronic hatred in the face for 400 years and keep teaching the world something about love. Right. No other people in the modern world have been hated like us, terrorized like us, and traumatized like us. And here comes Love Supreme. Here comes Wells. Yes. Terrorize others? No, that's the Klan. No Black version of the Klan, is it?
We don't do that. That's not us.
Black Panther Party, but terrorizing anybody, defending pressure.
Yes.
Traumatized. In the face, wounded healer.
Yes.
That's why we begin with our artists. Music is the vanguard of Black people. We don't exist without the drum. We don't exist without dissonance. We don't exist without blues. We don't exist without lifting every voice. The anthem of the Johnson brothers of Florida. When I was listening to my brother Thinking of Bell Hooks. Y'all know Bell Hooks. Called and talked to her just before she died. What was she doing? She was listening to Enchantment sing about Gloria. Because the real name was Gloria what? I could hear the delphonics and the dramatics. I could hear the whispers. I could hear many reading. See, those are not just entertainers. We got to remind them folk at halftime of Super Bowl, this ain't just entertainment. No, this band witness. This band witness something bigger than titillation and stimulation and your status and your ego. You talk about your grandmom and your granddaddy and the sacrifice and blood, sweat, and tears that they had to throw down so you could walk around in your right mind. Oh, what a tradition of great people. And that's the difference between success and greatness. That's what we love about these two. A whole lot of black faces in high places.
Don't forget you're in San Francisco. Some of those folks, they loved here.
No, but it's a beautiful thing because black success is always worthy of a certain kind of celebration. Oh, my history is pain and trauma coming that up. We come from a great people.
Yes.
And if you are an example of black success, the question becomes, will you out for greatness? And somewhere I read, he or she is greatest among you will be your servant. What you do for the least of these. Those Sly Stone, the genius from Vallejo. For everyday people. Now the genius from Chicago named James Cleveland called them ordinary people. What you do for them is greatness. And so you got black success, and then the question is using the kind of power you all have. And most importantly, keeping the humility.
Yes.
A lot of people get so black success, they think they're messianic now. No, you ain't no Messiah. You're going to have to bear witness and be a force for good in the language of Coltrane like everybody else. What we're experiencing right now is the use of power by black elected officials that's tied to the empowerment of folks that you have. You know how rare that is these days among black professional managers who like to trot themselves out like they peacock. Look at me, I'm the most successful one. We want to know what you're doing for the people. That's what we got happening right here. Like my sister reminds us, we are jazz people. And what does that mean? It's a soulfulness, sharing of a soothing sweetness against the backdrop of catastrophe. And keep in mind, my brother, there's never been a black problem. There's been catastrophes visited on black people. Very important. I say that in love. You know, he's my dear brother. Just met him. He's my dear brother family. Oh, that's true. It's true. So that meaning what? Meaning that in these instances, we're willing, just like our musicians, to give ourselves, to empty ourselves with courage, vision, to do what? Every time you hear a song coming out of the soulful tradition, it is shaped by the voices of the past. And in the black performance, there's an authorizing of a future that's a better future rooted in the best of a past. Let's call it Sankofa. You refuse to move forward until you connect it to the best of your roots. Your ROOTS so that your ROUTES, the routes that you can take, it frees you up in the quest for truth and beauty and goodness. And I'm a revolutionary Christian, so I'm still tied to Jesus. I'm because of the holy. I'm because of the holy. We just lost 57 years and 4 days ago, a brother named Malcolm X. I don't exist without Malcolm X. He's a Muslim brother. That's all right because his love is as concrete as a heart attack. You can feel it. Setting the standard. Hear it in Aretha music. Hear John Coltrane. You can hear it, Mary Lou Williams' piano. That's the caravan of love that the Isley Brothers sing about. And what is love? What are we here for? A steadfast commitment to God's precious everyday people who catch hell day in and day out, and for 400 years have been rendered so invisible we can't even talk about reparations. God, let America go to war. Let them go to war and see how they find trillions of dollars overnight. That's how warped the values are. That's how sick the soul is when it comes to your priorities. We find out what you really stand for. You watch how quickly they're going to mobilize trillions of dollars now that the war is off. With the precious brothers and sisters on the corner, all of a sudden things get tight. We got austerity. We got some elected officials that say, given all that's coming at them, and you got to understand a whole lot coming at them, they can't even tell you the full truth.
Right. So to that
They bounce back. That's very important. That's right. They can bear witness with the success and the greatness at the same time. That's a beautiful thing. A lot of success on halftime Super Bowl. We didn't see too much John Carlos and Tommy Smith moment, did we?
Say that, Dr. West.
We didn't see too much Muhammad Ali moment, Gil Scott-Heron, Nina Simone moment. Can you imagine if they gave Curtis Mayfield a billion people platform at the Super Bowl? That brother's genius would have been manifested in such a way that every black person be walking around with dignity. Told the truth, played his guitar and told the truth. Wasn't just spectacle. Had spiritual substance to it, political courage to it. That's what we're here for. And we're just cracked vessels trying to keep alive the best of a tradition of a great people.
All that has transpired out of the words of the mouth of Dr. Cornel West. But I think one of the things that you talk about is taking that political power, building on that. And I think the work that's been done is not in isolation, right? It is informing practices and policy systems changes that not just Black folks benefit from. Like we've often said that when you make the way and when you do the work, whether it's rising tide floats all boats, or whether it is when you take care of the folks most in need, other people benefit. We've seen that with the work with Dr. Colfax and the work that we're doing with MOCD, where the down payment assistance now has gone up for everybody because it went up for Black folks, right? That it is informing systems change when we target folks most in need. And so this idea of this initiative for folks who are like, it's only benefiting Black folks, like that aside, we know that in benefiting Black folks, it's actually benefiting the city. So what do you say, like in those moments when the whataboutism, or what about us, and what about these other groups, challenges your ability to move in this space, like to be able to move this work, because you know that it's bigger than the folks sitting here in this audience.
Right. Yeah, and as I said earlier in my opening remarks, there are different communities with different disparities. And it's important to acknowledge those disparities and to make not only financial investments, but policy changes that are going to lead to a change in that particular community. And as you know, for example, here in San Francisco, the Latino community was disproportionately impacted by a significant increase in the number of people who contracted COVID and the challenges around those who didn't qualify for rental assistance and other resources. We work with the community, we work with the Latino Task Force. We made significant investments, and we saw a significant impact on that community based on the issues that they were dealing with. And I do think it's appropriate, of course, as the leader of the city, I'm here to do everything I can to support and uplift all of the residents of San Francisco. So when I, yeah, I get the, oh, you're not doing enough, Black people get everything, and Black people this, and Black people that. And the problem is, it shouldn't be, oh, Black people get everything, and you should do for us what you did for Black people. It should be, this is what's going on with our community mayor, and how do we help to change that? And so I'm unapologetic about what I'm doing to invest in the African American community because, I see the data. I've lived in the data. I've experienced the data. And what I am trying to do is intervention, prevention, that could lead to success. Just imagine if so many of the other people that I had grown up with realized their full potential. Oh my, what a city we would be. And that's what this is about. So I'm not going to apologize for being very deliberate in the investments in this community, and I will continue to look at the disparities and do everything I can to support what's necessary for any community in San Francisco. But it's time to stop, let's be honest, stop lumping Black people into a minority category when all minorities are not equal.
Thank you.
And it's not to put a community against one another. Again, it's to address whatever the challenges are in that particular community. And so we've had a number of investments in the API community when they experience an insane amount of attack and hatred like never before, not just in this city, but in this country. And this community stood strong by the API community, and this city made significant financial investments in trying to address those issues. So it's important that we do that in every single instance. I'll continue to do that as mayor of the city, and I won't apologize for the investments and the attention that I may need to pay to one community or another, but it should never be perceived as pitting one community against another. And that's the biggest difference.
I know Ingrid from Early Care was here earlier and may still be here. And I want to just acknowledge too this challenge that you're saying to systems to change, right? Like often we've said to community, you got to do better, or you got to have this many people sign your sign-in sheet, and you got to prove your effectiveness. But you've actually turned the table and said, departments need to do better. Right? Like that if we're going to change these outcomes, that the city has to rethink how we work together and how we advance this effort. So I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that.
Yeah, I just, from my experience in city government, departments kind of work sometimes in isolation. And they are like, this is my department, this is my lane, and I don't step outside of that. And what I have tried to do in whether it's the hiring of the new department heads that I've been able to bring to the table, or just trying to have various collaborative meeting approaches, I've made it clear that you don't just represent the department that you run, you represent the city.
That's right.
And part of your role is to work with various communities. And so I've made it clear to all of the departments in San Francisco that, we have to, of course, focus on the challenges around equity. We have to make sure that when we look at the disparities within our own departments, specifically, we can talk about the number of people who have been fired or who have not been promoted within the African American community and city employment and some of the discriminatory practices that exist. We can talk about those things, and it's their job to help to shine a light on it and to address those disparities. So I've been very direct about what my expectations are. And I will say that in many instances, I'm really proud of many of the department heads who have really not necessarily, let's be honest, have had the Black experience, who have come around and who have tried to make changes. And we got to also remember that in San Francisco, with about 34,000 employees, Change sometimes is hard, but it's necessary in order to ensure that, again, we deal with some of the issues around the disparities that impact this community, and in any other case involving any other community. But again, it's people who aren't promoted, the people who are let go. I mean, there are so many challenges here that we definitely need to continue to address. And I am holding the department heads of this city accountable to addressing those issues.
In a moment, but President Walton, with all that's going on and your commitment from the hearings to the things that Mayor Breed mentioned for the employees to this investment in Dreamkeeper initiative, like what's your hope and goal? And you said a little bit about like it extending beyond the terms of you and Mayor Breed and leadership, but like what's the vision from here?
Well, I do just quickly want to address the question about what do you say to people when they say we are making too much of an investment in the Black community, because here in San Francisco we don't have enough investment in the Black community. If you look at home ownership, if you look at criminalization, if you look at the gaps in achievement for our young people, if you look at all of the issues that affect Black folks in the city, if you look at the decrease and decline of the Black population here in San Francisco, those are the things that tell you, one, we don't need to be apologetic about supporting the Black community, but two, until you address those issues within the Black community, we won't have safer communities. People won't come together in unity. And so it's real simple, and I know this is an old cliche, but you're only as strong as your weakest link. And a chain that's serious. If you're on a bicycle, once that link breaks, there's nothing you can do. You can't ride anymore. If you are on a boat and there's a hole in the left side of the boat, the whole boat is going down. Not just half of the boat, not just a part of the boat, the whole boat is going down. And so we have to invest in our community to ensure equity across the board. And if you want to see crime go down, if you want to see hopelessness go away, if you want to see despair go away, then you have to invest so people have options. There's a reason why most of the folks in this room aren't going to leave here and go out and commit a crime, aren't going to leave here and go do something stupid, because they have options, because they have received some type of mentorship, some type of support that has demonstrated to them how you can be as a human being if you are afforded opportunities. So that's why we don't apologize about investing in the Black community. That's why people have to understand that this stuff doesn't happen in a silo. Delane Easton, who used to be the state superintendent of schools, used to always talk about, people be like, why are you concerned about other people's children? I'm only concerned about mine. Well, when you hop on that airplane, that pilot is somebody else's child. When you hop in that Uber or that taxi cab, that driver is somebody else's child. So if you're not concerned about somebody else's child or somebody else's children, then at the end of the day, it's probably going to affect you. So what I want to see from the Dreamkeeper initiative, what I want to see from reparations is that gap in the wealth that exists between the Black community and every other community. I want to see that decrease. I want to see Black people buying homes all over San Francisco. I want to see our children graduating every opportunity, whether it's higher education or going straight into a job, because we develop pathways through the Dreamkeeper initiative and all the other workforce development. That's what I want to see. These disparities that continue to exist, I want most of them to go away, but at the very least decrease, so that we can thrive in the city like everybody else, so we can walk to work, walk to school, raise our children, and not be bothered just because of what we look like, and be celebrated because of what we look like.
I know, I'm like, going to Dr. West now. I know, I want you to jump in there, Dr. West, as we kind of come to this space. What do you say to the people? What do you say to these leaders as we come into this 1 year? And I know some folks are like, it's been a year, I still ain't got my money. It's coming. It's coming. Through this space, like, how are we doing this work? how do you encourage the leadership? How do you encourage the folks, and how do you challenge the folks that say it's not enough? But I say it's a beginning, and I also believe, and I'm not national. What is it? I don't think anybody else is doing it like this.
There's certainly something special happening in San Francisco. When it comes to the sacred needs of our people, it's never enough.
That's right.
You can't bring back the bodies on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean. You can't bring back the precious bodies on the trees lynched, the strange fruit that Southern trees bear that Billie Holiday sang about. You can't bring them back. You can't bring back the ones that the police shot down like a dog. So it's never enough. But the crucial thing is, we got to do all that we can with what we got.
Yes.
That's the crucial thing. That's why history is so important. You all know Mary Ellen Pleasant. First black millionaire in the history of New World Africa. Where's she from?
She got a house on my table.
Exactly. She married a robber baron. He dropped dead. She got the money. So overnight, she's a success. Then the question is, what's she gonna do with it? Frederick Douglass, take hundreds of thousands. Sojourner Truth, take it. Harriet Tubman, I hear you going back into the belly of the beast. You're gonna need some money, child. Gave a white brother, John Brown, to let you know it's not just a function of skin pigmentation, it's a function of spiritual formation and ethical cultivation. There's a whole lot of black folk who love everybody but black folk. I'm going in the hood with John Brown. I might not have the same rhythm I got, that's all right. His heart is in the right place. Ellen Pleasant gave him $600,000. She did. That was the note he had in his pocket when he was executed from the black sister from San Francisco, the godmother of human rights, not just in California, but the country. That is greatness. If you lose sight of the examples of greatness, we fall into despair. Both despair and also forms of success where we're well adjusted to injustice. I want to be maladjusted. Well adapted to indifference. And indifference is the one trait that makes the very angels weep. Rabbi Heschel say indifference to evil is more insidious than evil itself. You're turning your back on the vulnerable. You see your brother and sister on the corner. So many of them on the corner. I had long dialogues last night trying to get to the hotel. And it wasn't just money, and I let my cash flow, but it was dialogue. It's soul to soul, and eye to eye, person to person. And you say they are just as precious as any 1% living in whatever section. Now heal whatever heal you got. Each person made in the image of God. With a preciousness and a pricelessness. And if you believe in that, you're going to end up figuratively and symbolically following Jesus into the temple. And pushing out the money changers, not because they're rich, because they're too greedy. That's Christian hatred. You hate the sin like greed. You hate the oppression. You hate the domination because you love the people. But it doesn't mean that you hate the very folk who are perpetuating it. I learned that in Vacation Bible School. Hate the sin and still try to love the sinner. How come? Because there's greed in us.
Crack vessel.
Crack vessel. That's why I love gangsters. Because there's a gangster in me. one love, but love takes a number of different forms of manifestation. The supervisor, he got certain kind of constraints he got to work with. He's trying to broaden them out. As mayor, we got to pray for both of them.
That's right. All right.
But in their lane, they got to be great. Not in their lane. We start with the musicians, right? The blending of the voices. If one voice trying to be a copy of the other voice, then it's not going to be a high quality collective performance. Be like the Golden Gate Quartet. Be like the Monty Clouds. Be like Aretha. With her sisters. It's the blending of the voices that escalate the quality of the collective performance that impact the soul and bodies of others so they can get up and run and straighten their backs up. And anytime ordinary people straighten their backs up, they're going somewhere because folks can't ride your back unless it's big. That's who we are. That's where we come from. That's the greatness of life. They can try to shut us down and shoot us down. Because black love ain't nothing but a crime and a white supremacy. Fall in love with black people, get ready to be lied on and rebuked and scorned and misunderstood and misconstrued. It ain't about that. It's about the suffering and the overcoming of the suffering and the memory of those who had the courage. Because what did Mary Ellen Pleasant say before every speech? And I'll end with this. She said, I'd rather be a corpse than a coward. Mary Ellen Pleasant, San Francisco. Dr. Simon, San Francisco. Rather be a corpse than a coward. Rather be dead than afraid. Rather be. San Francisco. I ain't gonna bring the history to you. I'm just bringing the history to you. And look at what we got now. Look at what we got now in leadership. Put the smile on her face. Look at what we got now. This sister just got her doctorate just a few weeks ago. More humble about it. Look at this and what we're talking.
There's nothing more to say. The Black Code guys are coming up to sing. I just want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank the folks here, Mayor Breed, who I know folks challenge all the time, but I say when they challenge, I know from the on the ground, in the heart, that her commitment is to doing. She took this job to make the city better, and so I know that's the goal and the motion and the movement that she's in. So I want to recognize and acknowledge you. She is not like the other ladies, but anytime she asks me to do something, I know that she knows it's all about the community. So don't challenge that she's for the people.
Who's going to step in today?
President Walton has been an advocate, continues to be, and will always be planting that seed. So I just want to thank you, President Walton, for pushing me to do this. Dr. Cornel West. I'm going to say again, many of you know I grew up in the church. I used to be more active in the church. I don't know, anyway, guys, the streets be talking. But I just, look, when you was talking about music, Mayor Breed loves music. And I just, again, this was to me a moment of spirituality, not religion in the sense of that, but the ability to, I was reading this morning, the Negro's Church, and that idea that the church is where Black folks went to release their emotions, right? To have that moment, to hear, to be inspired, to cry, and be moved by the music. I want to thank all three of you because you have inspired me, you have touched my heart, and you have brought that true sense of church to this moment, to this time.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Stockton has gifts for you all. Thank you.
We got one more song for y'all.
Knock aside.
Let's get something down here.
Knock aside.
I too sing, oh, I too sing America. I too sing, I too sing, oh, I too sing America.
Let's go, Rodney. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. All I can say is very powerful, powerful stuff. What a conversation today. Just want to say, wow, community, this is so powerful, very inspirational to have Dr. Cornel West, our lovely mayor, London Breed, our board president, Shaman Walton. What a phenomenal event. The words of encouragement, the word of empowerment for the Black folks in our community. This is what this is about. When we talk about dream keepers, pushing our community forward, we're not going to let nobody stop us. We got to get the people who are going to move our community forward, and we're going to work together with them to move our community forward. And it's going to take us all. We got to get the right places, the right people together to make this change happen. It's going to take all of us, and I'm committed. I am one of those pillars of the community that will continue to push our community forward. But what a wonderful conversation today. We are going to continue to bless and impact our community. We're going to move the hatred out. We're going to bring the love, the support, the community, the folks that are uplifting our community, empowering our community. We have to remove the hate. We have to remove the negative energy and the folks that are not in line. What we're doing here in San Francisco with the Dream Keepers and our folks in the community, our folks need help. We don't have time to play politics. We don't have time to play games. We have to live to move our community forward, and that's being done today with Brother Cornel West, Dr. Davis, Shaman Walton, our lovely Mayor Breed. This was very powerful. If you didn't feel the energy, if you didn't feel the love and the support of the community, You missed out on one today, but we captured it here today on both sides of the conversation. So please go back and check it out. It will be going live. This was very powerful, very inspirational. I am moved, and I have to continue to move forward. The community, our folks, our ancestors are so greatly led. Thank you for tuning in today. This was an amazing event. Looking forward to seeing you all in the community as we move around. Continue to spread the love. Continue to uplift the community. Continue to uplift our people as we march forward with the Dreamkeeper Initiative. As we move in solidarity with our community, we'll continue to do a great event today. We love you all. See you soon. At this point, we're going to end our broadcast today. All power to the people.